Hi everyone, I thought I would jump on and give you a quick update for September's knitting. I'm a little bit worse for wear today because we were out and about celebrating my birthday, which was yesterday. I had a very lovely day, thank you for asking. But I had some time today, so I thought we could chat all things knitting. So sit back and let's talk about it. Okay, so I have 3 finished objects to share with you today, and 1 work in progress, and some knitting plans. So my first finished object is, okay, this is the Beatrix cardigan by Gregoria Fibers. The pattern calls for Aran weight yarn, but I wanted to use Letlopi held with this unidentified thrifted lace weight yarn. Have no idea what the composition is. I think it's some kind of mohair, but as I just have this huge, let's get it out for you, huge cone of it, but it does not have any details on the label. So yeah, these two held together with the recommended needle size of 5mm. I did not get gauge, so I ended up having to go down some needle sizes quite significantly, and I ended up using 3.5mm needles to get the required gauge. However, I did manage to use the exact amount of balls as the pattern recommends for my size. I knitted a size 3 and the pattern recommends 12 balls, and I ended up using 11 and a half. I actually bought 13 plus 2. I bought 2 extra because I thought I was going to run out of yarn, but actually ended up being as the pattern recommended. So with the construction, so we have a saddle shoulder cardigan, which I have never knit before, so this is my first time. The pattern is graded as an advanced skill garment, but yeah, I did not have any issues apart from, so you start with casting on this area here, so the top of the collar, or the bottom of the collar, the top of the shoulders, and you knit maybe about, I would say 10 to 15 centimeters of the top portion of the back, and then you go back to your cast on edge and you knit the top part of the saddle. So that is the start of the cabling that runs all the way down the sleeve. So you knit the top part of the shoulders, and then my issue came where you were to pick up stitches to start one side of the front of the body. The pattern said something like, and now you begin working the left side of the cardigan. Now for my brain, I really would like to know whether it's left side of me while wearing the garment or left side while looking at the garment. So it would be really helpful if designers give that information. So as you're looking at the garment, this will be your left side or this will be your right side. For me, that would just make things a lot easier. But anyway, yeah, so you work the stitch pattern for one side, and then you go on to work the other side. So the length, so I would have liked to have the cardigan just I like the length as it is now. However, I knit blindly and followed the pattern when it told me to stop in the stitch pattern and then begin the ribbing. I did so, but I would have liked to have the stitch pattern continue down and then start the ribbing a little bit later. So that's just something to be aware of if you want to knit this pattern and you like your garments not so cropped. Yeah, and then once you've knit the two sides, you pick up stitches down the side for this cable placket detail, and then you knit the sleeves. One thing I would say is that I probably would have liked to have knit the sleeves a little bit longer, but as there is so much material in the arms, as you have this sort of shaping in the sleeve, which allows for you to wear quite a few layers under the garment. I keep tugging it, so I'm hoping that as I wear it and the garment starts to shape to my form, I'm hoping that it will stretch enough to be comfortable. The length is fine, but I just think if I'm going to wear it more as a thick cardigan and outer layer, I think I would like my hands a little bit more covered. And also I'm questioning my decision to use such heavy buttons. You actually create the buttonholes after the whole garment is done just by wrapping yarn over each other and sewing them in. But I think these buttons, they're like vintage buttons that I found online, but they are metal and this pearl, and they are quite heavy. So for these ones, the weight of them is fine, but for this top button, I feel like it's a little heavy for the weight, for the collar. So what I might do is change this top button out for maybe just a plain white button, like plastic button, and then keep the rest of the buttons a little bit more embellished. I just find that it's not sitting quite right because the weight of the button is weighing the garment down a little bit. But other than that, oh, I haven't said anything about the stitch pattern. The stitch pattern is just this simple yarn over, and the colour is straw. So yeah, so that is my first finished object. It's not that cold today, so I think I'm just going to remove the cardigan for the rest of the video. Okay, so that was my first finished object. Okay, second finished object. Now, if you are Mr. Homesteading and you are watching this in order to support your wife on her YouTube journey, please go to this timestamp. Now, my second finished object is a hat I've made for my husband. After I had cast off the Beatrix cardigan, I felt like I needed a quick palette cleanser, and it's my husband's birthday in a few days, so I thought I would knit him a hat. Now, a few years ago, I knit him a classic ribbed hat by Pearl Soho, which he loved, and he lost. So he was pretty bummed out when he lost it. So I thought I would knit him a new hat. I needed some stockinette after the all over textured stitch of the Beatrix cardigan, so I decided to do a bottom up hat, but after the folded brim, I just did the stockinette stitch. And yeah, I used the numbers from the classic ribbed hat by Pearl Soho, but rather than the all over rib, I changed it for stockinette. Nothing more to say about this. The yarn I used was cotton merino that I had in my stash by Drops when I bought a load of cotton merino in the sort of slate grey that I made my husband's anchor sweater in. I also bought a couple of skeins of the green yarn, cotton merino, because I had in mind to make him a hat later, or a buff or something like that. So yeah, so I did that, and that's ready to go in with all of his other presents for his birthday. Oh, I did do a folded brim, but I wasn't really paying much. I was doing it while watching TV, wasn't paying much attention, and it's sort of slightly skew width here, but I don't think he would mind. Well, if he does, I will knit him another one, because yeah. Okay, so that's finished object number 2. Okay, so third finished object. So also, my husband's hat didn't take very long to knit, so I didn't quite scratch the itch of just a mindless project. So I was looking through my stash for something else to cast on, and I came across some yarn that I bought from a yarn festival back in March. Now, this yarn was just one skein that I bought. I was really on a strict budget at the time, and I only ended up buying 2 skeins of yarn from the festival, and this was one of them. And what attracted me to this yarn was the fact that, to me, it looked like sheep in a field. So I don't know if you can, there we go. To me, it just looks like an aerial view of sheep in a field, and I thought was beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about what I ended up knitting. So what happened was, I started to cast on a pair of vanilla socks because I thought, I want to knit something from this Fibre Festival yarn. So I wasn't feeling very imaginative and opted for some vanilla socks, because then I could just knit on some small needles and knit, some rounds and rounds and rounds of stockinette, which I thought was fine. I cast on for some vanilla socks, and I started to work the ribbing for the cuff. And while I was doing that, I was watching the latest podcast episode by Emma Robinson for the Woolly Mammoth, I think her company is named. Anyway, in that video, she shows a beret, and her finished object, it was sort of a similar green, and I looked down at this cuff of a sock, and I looked back at her finished object, looked back at this yarn and this cuff, and I was like, I'm going to knit a beret instead. So I abandoned that project and started working on this beret. So the pattern is called the Pip and Stalk Beret by Albina McLaughlin. And I'll try it on for you. I knit the largest size, and yeah, I'm happy with it. And I think that it just showcases the yarn beautifully. I haven't blocked it yet or anything. So the yarn is by a company called Wildfield Fibre, which is quite apt because it does look like sheep. And the composition is 85% merino, 15% nylon nep. So the actual little sheepy neps are not actually woolly neps, which is a little bit disappointing. But they're nylon. But to me, they really look like cream and black and brown sheep. Yeah, so it's a fingering weight yarn, and the pattern calls for DK upwards. So I held the yarn double, and it was quite satisfying because I only had this much worth of yarn left, which I made into a headband, or it could be even like a tiny collar, like a neck warmer or something. I haven't decided yet. I just knit this up quickly while watching a show, and so I didn't want to waste any of this yarn because I really love it. Yeah, and I should block it actually. This was a very quick knit. I actually knit the whole thing maybe in a couple of evenings. Yeah, so you start at the stalk and you work rounds of increases, and then you knit the crown and some decreases, and then you do a mini folded brim to cast off. The cast off is really neat and professional looking. However, it's fiddly. I would say it's very fiddly because you are working a 3-needle bind off as well as working the technique. What's the technique called? Jenny's stretchy bind off. So you're doing the two techniques at once. So you really do, well, I really needed concentration. So I actually think I'm going to wear this hat for the rest of the pod because I have it, and you may as well showcase stuff. So yeah, this is my little beret. I'm tempted to look for the nicest shade of raspberry yarn and to hold that together with like a raspberry, what's the word? A raspberry mohair or alpaca, and knit a raspberry beret a la Prince. I think that, but yeah, I am actually really happy with that, and I'm excited to with the pattern. Sorry, happy with the pattern, and I'm excited to experimenting with different yarns. So I think a nice little fluffy, maybe a solid yarn plus a couple of strands of a fluff to make a fluffy hat. I think that would be quite cute as well with this pattern because it's a great pattern and it's a simple knit. So highly recommend. So thanks, Emma, for your recommendation. I was duly influenced. Okay, let's go into whips. We just have one whip at the moment, but I think that will soon change. Well, no, I don't have one whip. I have 2 whips at the moment. I have my mud cloth And as you can see, it has hardly grown. It needs to be, yeah, and it needs a lot of attention. It needs more attention on it, but it's hard work. It's hard work. Even though it's just two colors, I think the pattern is constantly changing. So my mind doesn't focus as well as it could. So this has been my main whip for September. So this is the Halibut sweater by Caitlin Hunter. I already modified the pattern by doing a folded collar, which is neat and lovely and hasn't stretched out, because one of my bugbears that that you get very commonly with raglan type sweaters are the sort of loose necklines. So I think moving forward, I think what I will do is opt more for the folded, because this is so much neater than this. I'm a little bit limited with how far I can take this, but if you compare the two, I think this is so much neater than this, and it's a shame. So I think I might actually go back and do a folded collar for this, because I think it deserves it. If I'm going to put in all the work for a color work sweater, I think to have it let down by a badly fitting collar is a shame. So yeah, so that's on hold for a moment. I will get round to finishing it at some point, but this is continuing with the, you know, coastal grandma aesthetic, and yeah, it's going pretty well. I am using, so the pattern calls for DK weight yarn. Didn't quite get gauge when I swatched for the pattern. The pattern calls for 4mm needles for the main needle, but it was just I you know, a bit too loose. So I went down a needle size, and I am using 3.5mm needles as the main needle, and I think the fabric that it's making is quite good. I am using, so this is, sorry, I picked up the cone, I didn't even talk about the cone. So this is DK weight woolly knit cone, 100% British wool, as a 500 gram cone, and some knitting for olive, heavy merino. And it's, yeah, this is just the fabric that it's just soft and lovely, and yeah, really enjoyable to knit. The pattern is quite intuitive, even though when you're working the chart, each round is different. It makes sense, which for this, for example, it doesn't. Like, I literally have to sit at this desk and read the chart, whereas I've printed off the chart for this, and I could just look at it once, and once I've done sort of one halibut, the rest are, you know, it just follows on. So I don't think this sweater will take me as long. I'm halfway through the chart, and yeah, I think this will make a really nice sweater. I am knitting size 3, but the recommended ease is quite a lot. Now, I don't like a ridiculous amount of ease. So even though the designers specify how much ease that they have designated for each size, I tend to pick how I like my garments to fit, because I'm not the smallest person in the world, and I don't want garments to swamp me. So I do like a not a snug fit, but I do like clothes to fit my form well, rather than swamping me and being a bit baggy, which I guess tends to be the, not trend, but tends to be the preference nowadays. I feel that designers go for oversized more than form fitting. So I judge what size I knit accordingly. So this won't be how the designer has modeled it, a lot with a oversized fit. This will be quite fitted, and I like the fact that the color work stops quite low down on the body. So you have this, so it will be interesting to work out how the sleeves are integrated into that, because I also find that when you break for the sleeves quite low, it looks like it's constricting, like you have like T-Rex arms. So if I'm finding that it is breaking for the sleeves quite late, I might actually have to do it sooner, but I don't know how that will affect the look of the halibut. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm really enjoying this pattern so far. And yeah, it will be another sweater to wear to the beach this winter. Acquisitions. So as it was my birthday yesterday, part of my present was 7 balls of Knitting for Olive pure silk. I actually did ask for this gift, and I have a plan for it. So I would like to make the Ryo Angie skirt by Helga Isaiah. This skirt caught my eye on social media because I really like the ribbed shaping at the hips. A lot of the skirts that I have seen have discrete shaping, but I really like the fact that the hips seem to be accentuated by this side shaping. So I think that would be interesting to knit. I haven't bought the pattern yet, but I have been looking at what I would like to do with this silk. So my husband bought me 7 balls of this pure silk yarn. So what I think I will do is use up all the yarn and go for the length. I'm not too sure what the length intention will be, but obviously I will just use up all the balls and whatever length that takes me to, because it's knit top down, so I'm able to do that. So I think hopefully this will be enough for like a mid-calf or knee length skirt. So I hope to cast, I knew that was gonna happen. I hope to cast that on pretty soon. Okay, so I think that's all I have for you today. I will leave you with some footage of the beach that we took yesterday. And yeah, take care of yourselves, and I will speak to you soon. Bye!